Hello and welcome to the Business of Blockchain. I'm Jane King at the New York Stock Exchange. Today's episode, sponsored by Bitdeer, explores Bitcoin mining, AI, and something essential both industries need more of. It's not just chips, we are talking about energy. And today's guest is an expert on this topic, Samantha Robertson, Director of Global Energy Strategy at Bitdeer. So welcome, great to have you
Thank you
here.
for having me.
It's such a big topic right now. And of course, when we talk about chips, AI comes to mind these days, given all the buzz around AI chips. Explain what's the difference between the chips that are used for Bitcoin mining and the chips used in AI.
The chips used for Bitcoin mining are quite a bit easier to explain just by nature of the fact that they are indeed very simple. They're what are called an application-specific integrated circuit, commonly referred to as an ASIC. And what's special about Bitcoin mining ASICs in particular is that they're extremely power dense, meaning you can use a lot of units of compute per unit of energy, but they perform one function, which is to use the SHA-256 algorithm to decrypt numbers to confirm Bitcoin transactions. GPUs, on the other hand, are extremely powerful. They are built on a special type of ASIC, but they're pretty much designed to be constantly working so that they can process tasks while waiting for RAM or memory on the chip to be available. And so that's why they're also very power dense and of course use a lot of electricity.
Okay. Fascinating. I just learned a ton just then. So looking at what Bitdeer builds, it consists of many things. There's large data centers to tiny chips the size of a fingernail. Right now you're working on a new circuit design for chips, a potential breakthrough to support compute for practically anything, right?
Yeah. If you look at the history of Bitcoin mining chips over the past 10, 15 years, it's been one of the only compute applications that has focused on efficiency, because as you scale up compute for Bitcoin mining, of course, the revenues increase as well. And so we look at the efficiency gains, and they've been multiple thousands since the early days of Bitcoin mining. But what's really interesting about the chips as they stand today is that the actual design of the chip has not necessarily changed or improved. In fact, it hasn't changed at all. The efficiency gains have come from increased efficiency processes from TSMC or the other semiconductor foundries. And so what Bitdeer sees as a massive market opportunity is to actually go back to first principles and say, how can we look at the way the ASIC is built to make it more inherently efficient, regardless of what process is on the semiconductor side.
So we understand AI will take even more energy than what Bitcoin mining has. How do you see the industry being able to adapt to that increased demand for energy?
I think most simply and potentially even idealistically, it's going to drive innovation. And I think we're going to see new sources of energy, new sources of energy storage, but also adaptations to operations to where demand can be made more flexible. What a lot of the anxiety comes from is that compute for AI is seen as critical load and that it needs to be met 24/7. But what I believe is there's going to be a lot of efficiency gains in the computing hardware that's used in these data centers, so that we're getting more power per unit of electricity used. And I think that the industry and a lot of collaboration across different sectors is going to make that happen in a way that we can't foresee now, but will certainly meet the moment.
So Bitdeer's expertise in technology dates back to the earliest days of Bitcoin mining.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, you're like an OG for this. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Our founder, Jihan Wu, is actually seen as one of the pioneers in this industry. And he was the first investor and co-founder in the company that industrialized the process of Bitcoin mining, which came from designing the first ASIC used in Bitcoin mining data centers at scale. I think what is interesting about Bitdeer today is that in contrast to our peers, we do actually see ourselves as a technology company. And in that, we have 25% of our employees that are dedicated to R&D to not only look at what is the next frontier in Bitcoin mining, but in compute at large, and how we can leverage our expertise as a company and our commitment to technological innovation to use our assets and human resources to the most accretive value.
How is Bitdeer involved in AI?
So what Bitdeer is doing right now, and it's similar to a lot of our peers, is we're looking at our infrastructure and most notably our access to electricity at scale, which is something that is increasingly more scarce, especially as more companies, regardless of if they're building data centers for AI or Bitcoin mining, are going to need access to electricity stat. And so we're looking at how can we potentially leverage those data center assets to actually build and design data centers for AI, or to actually host our own GPU servers to have our own AI cloud applications. And actually in Singapore, we do have a very modest GPU deployment that is fully at capacity. And we're exploring how we might be able to scale Bitdeer's AI cloud computing application.
What is the current status of Bitcoin mining, the industry?
So the current state of Bitcoin mining, I would say, is that it's as exciting a frontier as ever. In April, an event called the halving occurred, which means that the rate which new Bitcoin enters the supply was cut in half. And so for Bitcoin miners, that means costs are double and revenues are half. And so there's a massive emphasis on efficiency, operational efficiency, in order to survive until the price of Bitcoin increases. And so it's been, I think, in any commodities industry, there are cycles, and we're in what is known as a recovery market, and hopefully gearing up to a nice Bitcoin bull run to just see that the future is continuing to be bright.
Well, a lot of people are predicting that. So now, with so many miners kind of pivoting to AI or implementing AI, do you think that has any effect on the security of the network?
I would say absolutely not. And the reason why is that if you look at the total hash rate or the total contributions of computing power from Bitcoin miners all across the global network, it's consistently at an all-time high. And so what that means is that the difficulty to solve for new Bitcoin is also at an all-time high. And there's a couple reasons for that. It's mostly that the mining rigs are becoming more efficient, and that you have more computing power per unit of electricity. And as we're seeing those deployed at scale, it's having pretty substantial impact on the network computing power. And so I think that even if Bitcoin miners, if we look at the US listed Bitcoin miners, the most publicly available information we have, even if a portion of their computing power were used for AI, the network hash rate would probably potentially drop or just stay stable. And so I don't think that there would be an impact on the overall security of the network. And because it is in fact global, there's computing power coming online in jurisdictions all across the globe. And so we'll always see that there is going to be adequate security for Bitcoin.
Do you feel like there's been kind of a transformation in terms of sentiment about Bitcoin?
I would say, I'm not sure I would characterize it as a transformation, but what I think we're seeing are positive developments. I think we're looking at what was typically seen as a partisan issue to be something that has bipartisan support, and of varying degrees and for varying reasons. But I think that leaders of both parties and see that this is an opportunity for the U.S. to lead, and also has multiple applications, as we were talking about, increased efficiencies in computing and technology, in addition to how blockchain can perform cybersecurity functions. So I think that All in all, the sentiment is indeed positive, and I think we're looking at what will be ultimately at least a landscape with regulatory clarity, which is what players across the space have been
Yes.
craving for quite some
Wanting
time.
for a while.
Yeah.
So there's some speculation that AI will make transactions on our behalf through machines. Do you see Bitcoin playing a role in that?
I'm not sure I can speak to Bitcoin's specific role, but I think what Bitcoin and other digital assets backed by a blockchain offer are secure payment rails. And with a lot of the anxiety and fears around AI and a potential lack of authenticity or transparency, I think blockchain-based technologies offer a complement to that and a potential to use technology also without a human verification to provide that transparency and authenticity when we're relying on computers for more and more of our daily lives.
What are you most excited about when it comes to the future of Bitcoin and the role that it plays?
I think that Bitcoin mining in particular has the opportunity to be a very interesting component of our energy infrastructure moving forward. We've talked a lot about how demand for electricity for compute is something that is top of mind for many people, including electric utilities and grid operators. And what's going to be increasingly important is that we're going to need flexible demand or demand response so that when the grid is overloaded, we can take electricity offline to ensure that everybody has the energy that we need. And I think that whether it's Bitcoin mining at scale or smaller operations co-located with generation assets, I think there's a very, very interesting opportunity to have this, what can be thought of as a balancing or a supportive function to the grid. And there's a lot of policy and a lot of stakeholders in the energy system that are interested in that. And I feel very lucky to be on the vanguard of how that might work into the future.
I know it's really, really exciting to see how it all
Indeed.
unfolds. So thank you so much, Samantha, and thank you to Bitdeer for sponsoring our Business of Blockchain series this year.
Yeah, my
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm Jane King at the New York Stock Exchange.